live here in Alvin, Texas, and which is part of the Dallas Metroplex. And I'm super excited to be having this conversation today. I want you to, settle down. If you know people should be here, we have lots of people registered. We're expecting quite a number. It took like 48 hours to plan this, and I'm excited that we're able to do this because oftentimes when error thrives, is because good people keep quiet, right? And so social media has become a means where all kinds of people just say a lot of things. And if care is not taken, people will be misled, people may be misguided because the fundamentals about marriage is not clear to many people. Now, over the years, we have, especially in Africa, in Nigeria especially, we have had a lot of unlicensed counselors who create problems with their thoughts and their beliefs, what they think is right. Unfortunately, in the face of the law, your emotions does not matter. And when it comes to marriage, there are ethos and principles through which you can analyze the framework of what is happening. For every challenge you see in marriages, it falls within a framework. And if you are not, there's what we call the principle of neutrality in our sector and our practice, where you first need to take a posture of someone who is very neutral. Unless you're neutral, you may not be able to effectively analyze what is going on. So what you've seen is exactly how people think. So someone can say, I'm a Christian, I'm a good Muslim, I believe in God, but when the chips are down, right, you will see what everyone actually believes. Okay, someone is saying no volume. Let me see. Oh, okay. I know what is happening. Okay, so sorry. Can you hear me now? Is it clearer? Let me know. Right. So when the chips are down, the reality comes to fore. Right. So over the last few days, you must have seen what people truly believe about marriage. Some people believe that a woman is not a part of the family. Very interesting dimension to the conversation. I just started laughing. And some other people believe that a woman who is asking for 50%, in a divorce situation is a greedy person. They believe that that woman is, a gold digger, right? And we don't bother to dig deep. And it goes to show how we perceive women, which ties to our cultural perspective about marriage, right? That we believe that marriage is about acquiring a woman. And also the fact that we believe that a man necessarily must be financially more buoyant than his wife. Little wonder we struggle to manage women who actually know who they are and can make more money, right? So the concept has been silent that, oh, this woman is coming to chop my money. And it's because many of the foundational ethos of marriage, especially in Africa, is built on the premise that a lady is coming from a disadvantaged position and the guy is coming to take responsibilities for her. So over time, for a long period of time in Africa, our women never worked. So we were not used to women who made money. We were not used to women who could take care of themselves. So what has happened over time is we have a new generation who carry iPad, but the mentality is still the old mentality. Now, today we're going to be looking at a whole lot, and with a view to actually figuring out what the issues are, what the challenges were in the Hakimi. Hakimi is just like, a smoke screen to have this conversation, basically. So that's like the case study. But we're going to go beyond that because not many people know the customs, the traditions of marriage across the globe. So when a Nigerian is discussing a problem that is happening in Spain or a problem that is happening in France, is going to be talking about it through the prism of the Nigerian marital system, which is basically the registry of the civil marriage, the customary marriage, and maybe the Sharia that they are used to. So I'm so excited today to have two of our most profound, authorities on this matters, and I'm going to be engaging them. Now, if you have questions, feel free to send to me. I'm going to ask your question. Now, I have today with me one of our lecturers at the Institute of Family Engineering and Development. As a matter of fact, is the one who takes the course Marital Customs and Marital Traditions, right? And an epitome of knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. And so most of the time, when matters like this happen, I try to pick his brain, right? And so I'm going to be welcoming to the podium today, Professor Yomi Faweyimi, and trust me, you're going to have a great time in here today. Okay. Also, I have with me the only CC who is a lawyer. Lawyers are usually very serious-minded people. They wear their, you know what they wear. Please, admin, can you help me spotlight Prof? I think I saw him when he came in. Lawyers are usually in their black and white, and they're always looking very serious. And so when you hear a CC, when you hear a lawyer, you expect someone that is very young, maybe someone in the 15, someone who is in 21, 22. But this one is not just a lawyer, she's also a divorce lawyer and a divorce counselor, right? And someone I respect so much. CC Lawyer, I'm going to bring you on the screen. You're welcome, CC Lawyer. How are you?
I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, where is Prof? I saw him when he came in just now. Okay, good. I think I can see him, so I can spotlight him myself. Looks like my admin is sleeping. Right. Prof, you are welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Okay. It's good to have the two of you in here. So, when I told CC Lawyer that Prof was coming, CC Lawyer was like, why will you put me beside Igiwe? Of course, when CC Lawyer was taking a certification in family system engineering, Prof was one of the lecturers, right? So our lecturer is here, and then the student who is also now a lecturer is also here, all right? And so I'm going to be, I'm going to start with the case that broke, right? The case broke. A certain man, Hakimi, who is a footballer, got into a divorce tussle with his wife. And, the story was that the woman filed for 50% of his earnings, and they got to court and they discovered that the guy had nothing, simply because every investment was in the name of his mother. Now, personally, I feel there were gaps because they say he had nothing. If he doesn't have anything, how did they pay mortgage, or where exactly did they live? How did they feed? How did they take care of basic things? Don't they have cars? How do you buy your house or property in the name of your mother and your wife was not aware? So in the course of the marriage, did they buy anything together? No. But I'm more bothered and concerned about, so there is a school of thought who started saying, he's a smart guy, until some other people fought back. I think the women started saying that, may your daughter, find herself in that position. Then the people were saying it was a smart move, say over my dead body. So it began to look like, as long as it happened to someone else, it was a smart move. But when it happens to our blood, because if I am in the family of the lady, how would I feel? Then there's a group of people feel, the marriage is just 3 years old. They say just, so why should she be, looking for 50%? She's too greedy. That's another school of thought, right? So just, and I'm asking, what exactly is just? 3 years is enough to maim someone for life. Some people never recover, from a divorce of even 1 year, depending on the trauma they go through. Some things cannot be quantified by money, but I want to be dispassionate, and I want us to go to the nitty-gritty of this case. We're going to touch on that case, look at it from a professional perspective, so that we can educate people and they can be better aware and informed about many things that they don't know. Then we're going to delve into marital customs and marital traditions, because, all the comments I was reading on social media, I was just laughing. There are still people who think that, they don't even know the different types of marriage that exist, even in Nigeria or across Africa, across the world. They don't even know what marriage is all about. Some people are talking about prenup. And so we're going to delve into all of this. But the first question is this. I'll take your initial thoughts when the news broke. I'll take Cecilia, I'll take Prof, then I'll get into specifics. Cecilia, when you spotted the news, what were your initial thoughts about that case?
To be honest with you, when I first read it, it didn't matter to me because it was, as far as I was concerned, it was football. I didn't look at it from the perspective of family. But then, of course, when the comments started and there was a lot to read on social media, the first thing I did was open my matrimonial causes law and ask myself that, do we even have such laws in Nigeria? And apparently, like you said, this issue of prenups is actually everywhere in the world. It's not anything new anywhere. And I don't understand the kind of comments that have been coming out of social media regarding this issue. So yes, my first initial thoughts when I started looking at it from the perspective of family was that, I think that a lot of people are just speaking from a position of emotions rather than sitting down and thinking deep about the issues that arise.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Prof, what were your initial thoughts, sir?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. My initial thoughts was that, and that's still my thoughts now, that there are facts, and there is a lot of exaggeration. That story would never have been like that. For what that we know about how divorce proceedings go or how things go, it's obvious to me that there were part of that stories that does not add up. And typically when I say a story that doesn't add up, what I typically do, and that's my own way of verifying, is I go and look for the story in credible news houses. So my first point of call will always be the BBC, Reuters, and then CNN, and then Al Jazeera. I went to those four and they did not report that. So it was clear to me that this story is not verifiable. But what was a surprise to me is the way the story came out and became so prominent and the way it just dominated discussion in the last couple of days. So it was almost clear to me that this looks to me like a case of deliberate malinformation to cause unintended consequences. And that for me is my own bigger concern, that it seems as if people deliberately planted the story, created the story, planted it, gave it the currency, made it go viral to create a number of unintended consequences. And some of the unintended consequences is what is happening is why we're here today, where some people are already taking decisions. Like I told somebody yesterday, that I'm sure that some men are already in trouble because they have written things they shouldn't write on Facebook, and their wives and their wives' family have seen it. And they are calling their daughters to a meeting by now and saying that your husband said this about this issue. So I think for those of us who understand how systems work, how culture changes, and how movement starts, I believe that is a deliberate seed that was sown to create this reaction and change the minds of many people. And I think it's worked us far.
Wow. Thank you very much, Prof. I mean, you hit a lot of nerve. I mean, because I also, I mean, I didn't check out Jazeera, but I went to dig a little deeper into the relationships they shared. And, I had to quickly put up a write-up because, I mean, it was just very nauseating to see what people were writing. I mean, I almost couldn't believe. Some people even say, I even saw some religious leaders, what they wrote about the case, and it was almost unbelievable. And like you said, it was rightly planted, and that's what it looks like. But I would want us to have discussions around some of the critical issues in here. Now, I'm going to start with Cecilia Lawyer. One of the issues that came up clearly during this case is the issue of prenup, right? No, before I go to prenup, now Hakimi's wife has been called all kinds of names, across Africa, because incidentally, this story did not trend in America. I must say that it was not trending at all in America. It did not trend in Canada from my findings from my people in Canada, and it did not trend in South Africa. Right. And so we need to put that as a perspective because, I mean, almost like it was a global trend. It didn't trend anywhere in America. It didn't trend in Canada. And it didn't trend in South Africa. I don't know about other countries, but I know it was a major trend, number one in Nigeria. Now, she's been called a lot of names across Africa, saying, oh, why would a woman ask for 50%, just for 3 years of marriage? Sister Lawyer, is it greedy to ask for 50% in a divorce case? What's the position of the law?
Well, the position of the Nigerian law or the position of law abroad?
Well, I think you should take both.
Well, the position in Nigeria is that the woman is entitled to settlement, what is known as settlement. The woman is entitled to some form of settlement from whatever it is that the husband earns. Although I think it's the same as abroad as well, in the sense that if the woman is the better earner, then of course everything will depend on how much she earns or how much he earns. So, for instance, if an award of settlement is going to be made for her maintenance, it's going to take into consideration the fact that she earns X amount and he earns X amount. That is the position in Nigeria. Now, abroad, you will find out that most times the woman doesn't go out to work in the first place because of costs of living abroad. Many times you find that the woman stays at home and she looks after the children. And so for that reason, she's entitled to a share of the husband's estate or property, if I may call it that, in the event of divorce. How that is determined is, I think it varies from country to country.
Okay. I mean, well, I'll take your last statement because I know that a lot of families are actually single led, and they are led by women in America, right? Right now. Maybe Prof wants to weigh in on this particular question. All right.
Thanks, PF, and thanks, Cecilia, for that. I think the part of what makes the story also a bit suspicious to me was that the story was presented to make it seem as if the lady went to ask for 50%. I mean, and that's why people started to talk about gold digging. I think what is clear is that people don't know how a typical divorce proceeding works. It's not as if the lady will just go and say, give me 50%, and then the court will say, take 50%. I mean, that's not the way it works, right? Because 50% of what? Is it 50% of his income, 50% of his assets, 50% of the remainder of his asset? Imagine this man earns $100. Because his salary as PSE is over $1 million per month, he doesn't pay the regular tax. He pays what they call a super tax. So that means his tax rate is going to be around 30 to 45%. So if he earns $100, what comes to him at the end of the day may be like $50, $55, $60. So when they say she wants 50%, what 50% are we referring to? Assets, acquisitions, or remainder, or income? So what many people don't realize that's not typically the way it works. Like Cecilia brilliantly explained, it's about settlement, and it's about what does the court do to make sure the less financially endowed partner is not put as a serious disadvantage as a result of that. Now, people have also forgotten that this is also a union that produces children. So there's also the part of the alimony and also the payment for the children. So part of what is very funny, I mean, somebody told me, no, this thing is very true. And I just asked him two questions. One, where is the court? He said the court must be in Spain. I said, no, the woman is not even in Spain. And he said, okay, so it must be in France. I said, no, the woman is actually not in France. I said, so you don't even know where the court is. And nobody has told us where the court is. We don't know the name of the lawyers, whether it's Ake and Popo lawyers that is represented. So how can there be a case? We don't know the court. We don't know the lawyer. And the most ridiculous part of it, and that's, you see, one of the things we need to be very conscious in today's world, all of us must develop that due diligence of investigating stories, right? I know this thing doesn't make sense or doesn't make sense. I mean, the first story I read was that they said the court, I mean, if you check the initial, it said the court told the lady that the guy has his asset in his mother's name. And I asked a question, in a typical divorce proceeding, what is the business of the court in informing the female about the assets of the other person. Is the court the lawyer of the man? I mean, I mean, the court, they have not even resolved the divorce yet. People are already saying the court is already telling her about the settlement. It's after the divorce has been resolved, then you talk about settlement, right? So the divorce has not even been resolved. We are still looking for the court. That somebody is saying the court already told. So is it court that tells people that? Quite a number of things were like, but like Cecilia brilliantly explained, the settlement issue is a matter of various factors that determining, and sometimes it's actually the men that also get it. So this gold digging business, let's be very, it's just that people don't want to accept it.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Now, Sissy Lawyer, can you take us through how divorce works? Because, I mean, I want our people to be enlightened. So much ignorance, and it pains me that, you know, some things that if you don't know, say, I don't know. Everybody thinks that they always have to open their mouth and talk, right? And so too many misinformation, unlicensed professionals, you know, everyone is just talking. How does a typical divorce case, how does it work? Please, can you take us through?
Well, for purposes of this discussion, I imagine that you're talking about the issue of settlement of property.
Well, let's even start with the divorce proceedings, then settlement of property.
Well, the divorce proceeding starts with what we call a petition. The wife petitions the court and says, I'm saying the wife now because I'm a woman, I'm sorry. The party who wants the divorce goes to the court and with a petition and says, I want to be divorced. Now, in Nigeria, there has to be what I call a fault. In the UK, you can have what they call a no-fault divorce. So, he first of all he tells the court, he says, this is what I want a divorce. And the court then looks at the petition, asks the other party, what do you say about it? And in the course of that, the issues of custody, the issues of settlement of property are all taken by the court before the divorce is granted. So it's not an issue of, okay, they're asking for divorce, let us give them divorce now. And then later on, well, let us look at the settlement of their property before we determine whether or not they want to divorce. It is all one package together. And then the court then determines and says, all right, this is how much should go to the woman, or this is how much should go to the man, or who gets custody, who doesn't get custody, and of course, all of us, these are subject to what I call rules of court. So getting a divorce is actually a lot more than just going to court, giving evidence of 30 minutes and that's the end. There's a lot of pre-work that is done. Pre-work in the sense that you want to find out, all right, how much property he has before I can take that to the court and say, in giving me a settlement, this is how much this man earns, this is how much I earn. We have 3 children. One of them has a medical issue, whatever the situation is. And those are the issues that the court is then called upon to determine, to award the settlement, to award the custody before the divorce is granted. So the divorce is actually the last stage of the proceeding.
Okay. Can you now speak to settlement?
Now, when there's a request for settlement, then I must tell the courts and say, my husband earns 10 million naira a month. I earn 1 million. Our children have been brought up at this level in their lives. If you are giving me custody, I want them to continue to live at that level, even though their parents are not going to be together. Now, the Matrimonial Causes Act actually allows us to come to court whether we have a prenuptial, it's called an antenuptial, or a postnuptial, in fact. Whether we have that or not, the court will still determine what is in the best interest of the children. And that's what we'll be doing.
Cissy Lawyer, before I go to Prof, I mean, you have talked about prenuptial agreement. It's not something that is common in Nigeria. And so when people mention that, People think that, oh, if I mean, I was talking to a lady who is about to remarry right now actually she's remarried in America. And the first marriage in Nigeria was such that the husband died and the family took everything, that they own. And so she was rendered, to the ground. So she had to build herself up. She found her way to America. Now she's gotten married to another person from Nigeria. And one of the things she insisted was a prenup, right? Because now she's acquired properties and, and the guy was like, no, don't you trust me? I'm supposed to be your husband and blah, blah, blah. He said, no, once bitten, twice shy. Do you want to speak a little bit to, how prenup works? And is this something that the law permits in Nigeria?
I just said that Section 72 of our Matrimonial Process Act does allow us to enter into prenup agreements. Now, how does it work? Yes. So now, how does it work? Usually, it's an agreement, the two of them. You know how when we were in class, you taught us about how you sit down and say, this is how we're going to sort our family out. This is how our family is going to be run. This is our family constitution. It's more or less the same kind of thing, thinking through the situations that you may find yourself in, thinking through issues about maintenance of the parties. Also, not only during the marriage now, but even after the marriage. And like I said, just as our law allows it, you can have an antenup, which if you forgot to have your prenup or to enter into your prenup before you got married, you are still allowed to take that route.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I want you to enlighten the audience today on the various forms of types of marriages and marital customs and how it affects inheritance. Because in Nigeria, for example, part of the things I saw on social media that was really, really baffling was someone saying, I got married in the presence of God. God is the one that's secured the covenant in the presence of church, so God is watching. And if anybody does anything, God is, so in the mind of many people, there is church wedding or church marriage, right? And you see all kinds of stuff. Do you want to take us through the various types of marriages that exist? For example, and maybe marital customs. I know that this is a course that, I know how long it takes you to cover this in class, but maybe a summary. And how does this affect inheritance? Because each also differ as it concerns inheritance.
Okay, I'll make it as briefly as possible. I presume that many of the people on the call are Nigerians, so I'm going to use Nigerian as a case study. There are principally three types of wedding or three types of marriage in Nigeria. So I will discuss the type of marriage and then discuss the property implications. So the first type of marriage is what is called the statutory marriage. That's what people erroneously call the church marriage. It's actually a marriage contracted under the Marital Causes Act, typically either in a registry or in a licensed place of worship, which could be a church. So that is the first type. It's typically what they call the court marriage and things like that. So, or the one that happens in the licensed place of worship. The typical ones the average Christian does, just for people to, so it's called the statutory marriage. For those kind of property, for those kind of marriage, the rules around property is a bit different in the sense that there are some assumptions of unity of ownership of some assets after the marriage if there is no prenup agreement. So in the case of a woman or a man who gets into that type of marriage, all things being equal, the cases for settlement becomes more defined because there are some elements of some unity of ownership for some specific assets. So that's the first type of marriage, statutory marriage. The second style of marriage in Nigeria is what is called Islamic marriage. And as its name shows, it is marriage contracted under Islamic law. Now, for the statutory marriage, I explained again, it's typically monogamous, one man, one wife. For the Islamic marriage, there is multiplicity of wives because Islam allows for it, though it gives conditions. Many people have said, oh, in Islamic marriage, man can divorce his wife, but you say I divorce you, I divorce you. But that's not true. That's fallacious. That's not what the Islamic jurisprudence says about divorce. While the man is expected to pronounce three times, the 3 times are not immediately, and there are some intervening things that can cancel what you have pronounced. So in the case of Islamic marriage, with respect to inheritance and property, property, if one party dies, maybe the man, for example, the Sharia law has prescription on how the assets will be shared. It says half should be given to X, 1/4 should be given to Y. So there is a formula in Sharia law that tells you how property should be shared under the Islamic marriages. Now, the third kind of marriage is what is called the traditional marriage, and that's the customary marriage. That's a marriage protected under the native law and custom in Nigeria. That kind of marriage is based on the law of the area where you are. And for me, that is the more careful one, because, in the first kind of marriage, I mentioned that if the man dies, for example, under the statutory marriage, the wife can inherit, particularly can take over assets that they jointly hold. In the second kind of marriage, where I talked about Islamic marriage, I mentioned that there are formulas for describing how property should be shared. In the customary marriage, in Yoruba land, for example, under Yoruba custom, the wife does not inherit anything. Actually, the wife is an item to be inherited. That's why there's a Yoruba culture, and it's not, before people start saying, no, it's wrong. It's actually something that has basis in the Bible. That's a levirate system where the brother of the widow takes over, where the brother of the widower marries on behalf of that. That was what happened in the case of Ruth and Boaz, right? So in the case of in the traditional marriage, the woman herself is an asset to be inherited. And therefore, she can't inherit any property. It's only her children that can inherit. And it depends on the culture. It's important to know that under the customary marriage, there are also various rules of asset allocation. For example, in Yoruba land, there is Ori Ojori versus Idigi. In Edo land, there is Ijiobe that can only be inherited by the first land. In some parts of Chief land, there are some things that can only be inherited by the last born. I wish I was born there because I'm a last born. I would have inherited everything. Now, so you have all those variances. Now, one thing very, very important with traditional marriages, and for those that are protected, is the fact that the rules of inheritance of houses or property is not a function of your culture, is a function of where the house is.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, if you married under traditional marriage, and in fact, there was a classical case, two Benin people, two Edo people married under the traditional law, and they were living in Ilesha. And so when the man died, the family of the man said they want to share the asset by Edo land. And then the wife, the second wife, who is from Ilesha, said they wanted to share it by Ilesha custom. And they said no, and they took the matter to court. And the court held, and that's the standard of judgment in Nigeria, that for people who marry under the customary act, it is where the property is, the custom of where the property is located that will determine who will inherit it. So if a rich man married under the traditional marriage and has a house in Kutuwenji, they will share that house based on the law in Kutuwenji. If he has another house in Karanamuda, they will share it according to the law there. Now, so those are the three major ways when it comes to properties and assets. So what is very, very important and this is my own direct appeal to the women that are here. The safest, and I'm being open here, the form of marriage that protects women the most is Islamic marriage. I'm a Christian, but I must admit that is the one that gives a woman the biggest protection when it comes to inheritance or debt. The second one is the statutory marriage. And that is the marriage of church wedding and all of those things. That's the second. The least protected one is the customary marriage, because you are yourself, you are a chattel to be shared. However, because there are women on this call, all you need to do, if you're married under customary law, and you know that they will share you as part of the asset, all you need to do when your husband is building a house is you must invest in that house, and there must be evidence. So what you need to do to make yourself, because all you need to do in customary law to protect yourself against losing out in the assets of your husband, is that you must ensure that that asset becomes family property. And in Yoruba culture, for example, a house becomes family house once more than one person invests in it. So when your husband is building, just go to Dangote Cement, buy 2 bags of cement, ensure that the receipt sheet shall be delivered to this site, occasionally buy water, take pictures, let there be video. If all you contributed is 5 nails, to that house has become a family house. And consequently, your contribution defines what you will get. And you cannot be taken out of that house just because you have now become a joint owner. So for women who married under the customary law, that's your best way to increase your stake in the home. But at the end of the day, the question we need to always ask ourselves is, divorce is one side of the story. Assets is another side of the story. It's important for us to think about. So as I summarize, PF, you have said that, take that. So first thing is that ensure you marry under the right one, the one that protects you tomorrow. Of course, if I know a Muslim, you can't do Islamic law. So maybe you do the statutory. So the first thing is that under what law did you marry? Very important. Number two, what is very important is where you got married. It's very, very important, because there's an assumption that because I attend Redeemed Christian Church of God, we did wedding. So somebody who attends Redeemed Christian Church of God and got married in Shagamu, the laws of Ogun State and the laws of Lagos State, when it comes to some aspect of marriage, are not the same. So for example, in some states of federation, bigamy is not a criminal offense. It's a civil issue. You can only get compensation for if your husband marries a second wife, despite the two of you marrying in the same Redeemed Church, one in Shagamu, one in Lagos. So the question is that you must also be conscious the state in Nigeria where you got married, because you can have a case where your husband can marry a second wife in spite of you getting married in Redeemed or deeper life in Nigeria, because some states have decriminalized bigamy. So you must be conscious the state. So when people say, I want to go and marry in my village, you may be entering trap. There was a celebrated case that happened a couple of years back. A guy got married in Rivers State, in Port Harcourt, under the Matrimonial Causes Act, the statutory marriage in the church, then came to Lagos to marry again. And why did she do it? Because at that point, one very creative governor has decriminalized bigamy. So it was an offense if he got married in Rivers State, but it was not an offense if he came to Lagos at that point in time. So we must be conscious of where did we get married. So people say, I'm going to do destination marriage, I'm going to do wedding in Dubai. The Dubai laws, if Nigeria does not have reciprocal agreement with Dubai, you may be shocked that your marriage may be bound by those laws there. Be conscious of where you got married. And finally, once you are in any kind of marriage and you know that you have married a husband that the spirit of the Hakimi is inside him, start to think about how you can protect yourself. Start to think about how you can increase your stake in that home such that that man will not do evil. Maybe sometime later, I'll talk about the stupidity of any man who decides to buy property in the name of his mother, because that man is actually more stupid than anything.
I'm going to come to that, Prof, but someone is asking that you mentioned that can you explain licensed place of worship? So does it mean that if I go and marry in Sele and they give me, or if I marry in Redeem and they give me a certificate of Redeem, am I bound by the law even if I've not gone to the registry to pick a form, or if the church is, what does it mean to license a church or to license a minister?
Okay, Sissy lawyer is the lawyer here, so let me just say the two I can say and then ask her to conclude if you don't mind. Okay, the law says that so there are two conditions. It is a licensed place of worship, not a licensed church. So what that means is that if Redeemed Christian Church of God goes to get license for Cemetery Road, Ebutemeta, you can't use that license to go and get married in Akumojo. You'll be committing an offense. So the law says licensed place of worship, not licensed denomination. So each church that has capacity to join people should formally apply to become a licensed place of worship. You go to the registry and then they give you the power to, and they give you also some conditions and things you can do, including a license. Actually, your real mandate license in Nigeria is the one you get from there, not the one the church puts for you. So that is a licensed place of worship. It's a licensed place of worship, not licensed denomination of worship. Please note that. So if you say you want to go and get married anywhere, your daughter say you want to go and marry, ensure and ask the pastor, are you a licensed place of worship? Question one. Question two is that the people joining them, are they licensed minister of that place of worship? The law clearly says that the ministers must be licensed in that place of worship. So now PF is my friend. My son is doing wedding. PF is the general overseer of PF Church of the Living God. I now invite him to my church to come and join my children. Now, PF is not a licensed minister in my licensed place of worship. If PF comes to join them, that marriage is void ab initio, because we have already gone against what the law says. So it must be a licensed place of worship by licensed ministers of that place. So if you are doing a wedding in Redeemed Christian Church and Baba Adeboye is there, don't say, let us respect our father, let him do the one to. No. Let him sit down and preach and go home. So those are the two things. And the two things must happen because that particular center or that particular church applied to government to become a licensed place of worship for the sake of conducting marriage ceremonies.
Thank you very much, Prof. Cecil Lawyer, I'm going to ask you, the issue of next of kin was another case that came up during this Hakimi's case. And we have a situation where some married men have their mothers as their next of kin. Some of them have their younger brother. You know, how does a woman, and you also have it vice versa. You have a situation where the woman has a brother as a next of kin. In fact, some women have their firstborn as their next of kin and not their husband. How do people protect themselves? You know, when situations like Prof said, if you have the spirit of Hakimi, you know, where your mother is everything, you know, how should, Prof has given in the customary situation, I mean, he has given some suggestions or recommendations. What do you, from a legal perspective, what can you do? Because a lot of women have lost out. You know, I know men have lost out as well, but I mean, in Africa, it's the women. In the developed countries, you know, because I mean, we know footballers who have lost out, you know, in some cases like this. No, what should people watch out for?
Well, next of kin isn't anything. Next of kin does not confer on anybody any legal status. The purpose of next of kin is, let me put it in my own language, who should we call in the event that there's an emergency?
Good.
That is all the power of a next of kin. So when somebody puts their 2-year-old son as their next of kin, it's actually, it doesn't mean anything. My next of kin is the person who, in the event that I get ill, especially at work or wherever, in the event, they are the ones to inform my office, or my office is to inform them that this person is ill or this person has died. Simplicity. It doesn't confer any inheritance on them. It doesn't confer any rights to collect any money. You know, like when they say, I want to collect his entitlements, it doesn't confer that right, even to collect entitlements. So next of kin is really, I think, just an administrative thing, to be honest with you, so that at least one knows that in the event that something happens to me at work, there's somebody that they can call who can come and take me to the hospital, or who can come and do whatever it is that needs to be done. Fantastic.
Now, I put that out because I've also seen that ignorance a lot on social media. Now, let's come to, if I buy property, I'm in a marriage, but I'm buying property in the name of my mother or something like that. How can a woman or the spouse protect themselves in the case of divorce? When divorce happens, does it mean that they are losing out totally? Or is that something?
Well, once the man buys property and the legal title resides in the mother, it is a gift from him to the mother. There isn't anything the wife can do about it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lawyer. Prof, do you want to weigh in a bit on that? So let's even assume this Hakimi's case is a true story. And, you know, because I'm asking questions, you know, you were married, but everything is in the name of your mother. You know, I don't know where they live. You know, maybe they live inside the car. I don't know how they buy cars. I don't know how they buy gas. I don't know how they pay mortgage and all the incidental bills that they should pay.
I see somebody saying that my view on next of kin. That's the law.
Okay.
It's the law.
Okay, thank you very much, Cecilia. Yeah, Prof, you want to weigh in on that? Let's assume this hypothetical case is real. You know, it doesn't mean that the woman is totally. In fact, there's a follow-up now that people are trending that now the court is saying that since he has nothing and the woman is worth $2 million or $3 million, you know, that they must now share our own property 50-50 and things like that. I think the people continues. Prof, what is your take on this?
Thanks for that question, and thanks, Lawyer, too. I think the question. Let's first say, okay, so many Nigerians are now saying they want to do the same thing, and you know, the question is that it's not a wise strategy for one reason. So, if Hakimi was a true case, if he gifted the mother, so the question is that, so how did it really happen? So is it a case of Hakimi collect? So let me tell you what will not happen. One, Hakimi works for PSG. He's an employer of PSG. His salary will not be paid to his mom. So his salary will be paid to him. He can then transfer to his mom. If he does that, and gives the woman that, there's nothing the wife can do. But the question is that if you give your mom 1 million naira, in most countries, there is what is called gift tax. You're expected to pay gift tax to give your mother money. In countries like Canada and some parts of the world, the most foolish person gives his big money to his mom. The best person to give your money to save on those taxes is your wife or your son under 18 years old. So if you want to actually transfer to somebody else, it's your wife or your child under 18 years old, you should. So the first thing that if Hakimi transfers to his mom that gift, he pays the woman, depending on the country, pays a gift tax. Now, if it is the reverse that Hakimi buys a house, then buys it in the mother's name. So he has given the mother the property. If Hakimi, in addition, pays a capital gains tax for that transaction, right? The mother pays a capital transfer tax for receiving that gift of a property. You've seen that those are 3 taxes that goes out on that money you are giving your mom. If he didn't pay that, then if the Hakimi now says, I've given my mom the gift, then the wife can stand up as an adverse possessor and say that the gifting was inchoate because of the fact that it was not finalized with the tax. The wife can stand on that and get good lawyers to fight that. At the end of the day, there's nothing lawyers can argue. I mean, my name is Yomi Faweni. A lawyer can go to court to say my name is not Yomi Faweni. So the wife can say, okay, the transfer happened, but the transfer was not inchoate, because it wasn't concluded. Like it happened when Lagos State, for example, decided to create local government. They didn't say you can't create local government, but you didn't finalize the process. So 3 taxes as you transfer the money. So you send your money to your mom. Your mom is sitting on it. When did your mom become a property manager? Can't your mom gift that same property to his religious leader to go and use to build or give to people? So let us assume that the woman now dies. You will collect the property back, right? When you want to collect the property back, you will pay probate tax to collect. That's the 4th tax. You will pay on that asset. So my question is, in most countries, between gift tax, capital transfer tax, capital gains tax, and probate tax, at the end of the day, close to 40 to 70% of the value of that property will go into taxes. So what is the sense in transferring to your mom when you can transfer that same asset? Because some people are saying they want, that's okay, transfer the asset to a trust. So you can create a praise for trust that will be the owner of that asset on your behalf. Transfer to your mom is the most ridiculous thing you can do. So for me, let us assume Hakimi's wife is my sister or I'm an advisor. All I will just do in this instance is that, okay, I can't argue that you did not give the woman the gift, but I can argue that the gift was not completed because you did not pay those taxes or you did not go through the full process of transfer. In Nigeria, for example, if you give somebody based on the land use act of 1978, you must get the governor's consent. If you didn't get it, the gift was not given. So I may argue and say, I stand as an adverse possessor, which is a legal basis to contend anything in law. To say, okay, I'm not saying I'm not the owner, but I'm saying I'm adverse to this transaction. That's one part of it. The other part of it, and that's what people don't also want to accept, is the fact that let's just even assume the man does not have asset in his name. The salary he gets for the rest of his life is in his name. Because PSG, I'm an HR professional. PSG cannot pay an employee in another employee's name. So if the woman says, okay, if they say, okay, you can't get anything in his name, all the woman should just say that future earnings. Many people have forgotten what happened in the Tyson case. That's what happened. One of the reasons why Tyson stopped fighting boxing was because he got to a point, every time he fought and he was paid, the money goes to the ex-wife. So she has that option there. So at the end of the day, I mean, I always tell people that when some men say they are smart, they want to protect themselves against their will. If you really marry a real poor woman, once you are married to a woman, just know that it is stupid for you to think you can protect yourself against a bad woman. it is futile because she has the law to her side. That's one part of it. But again, the question is, why do people want to just play games? I agree, some women and some men have had some very bad experiences. Some women have also had some, but what's the point? Be open about these things. If you feel that you want your wife not to have access to your assets, Yoruba man says that the person that will beat you when you die, do you hide your nakedness from him? You're just wasting time and create unnecessary complication for your life. This world is too easy for somebody to be carrying property to the mother, carry property. You know what will be funny, and that's the last point I want to say about is that, you know, if Hakimi's mom dies, you know, Hakimi's junior brother can take Hakimi to court if Hakimi collects all the property back. Abi, is it not in name of that mother?
Can he collect it back? Can he even collect it back?
He will. That would be his plan. I mean, if the woman dies, the property has to go to somebody. Plan,
but that is
so if the woman dies.
So if the woman dies, can he even collect it? Is it not her estate?
No, he may. So he might have used a will process, assuming the woman has a will. The woman wills 100% to it. But what any child will just do is to contest that the will was done under duress. Then the asset will now be shared under Islamic law. That land will now be shared between the woman's uncle and his relative.
Under which they will share the property. It's Islamic law.
So it's agreeing with you about wise, and some people are saying
I am agreeing with you concerning the stupidity of what the guy is supposed to have, is said to have done.
It's just absurd.
This is serious because someone out there is going to, in fact, some men, I am almost sure they're about to make that mistake to say, oh, I am going to go and buy property in the name of my mom. After all, my mom cannot leave me alone and blah, blah, blah. Now, I'll stick with Prof. Prof, you know, that someone is asking a question, and this was sent privately, that how do you recommend this tussle between my wife, my mom should be handled, right? Because at the root of many of these things is, oh, your mom loves you more than your wife. Your wife can leave you, your mother never leaves you. That's the premise. And I think it's very problematic thing because you have explained a lot of things, and you and Silo have explained a lot of things right now. For example, Hakimi's younger brother can insist that he also is entitled to whatever if the woman dies, and many people don't know these things, and they're just spewing out ignorance on social media, right? How can people resolve this issue about mother, choose between me and your mother, or choose between me and your son, and you know, how can this be carefully handled in a way that there is a lot of harmony? And I want you to also delve into, could Hakimi have done these things because of a precedent of maybe what happened to Emmanuel Eboué of Arsenal, and maybe one or two other footballers who, you know, maybe lost everything to their spouses?
Thanks. I mean, everybody keeps talking about Eboué, and I remember I told somebody, I said Eboué allegedly lost everything, but Bill Gates also had a divorce, and he did not become a poor man. Mm-hmm. There were three things that was different in the Eboué case. One, Eboué was not well educated, so he didn't have good lawyers on his side. Number two, Eboué was not very rich. You can check his income when he was in Arsenal, when he's up. So he was not a very fantastically rich person. And number three, Eboué's asset management system before the divorce was effective. So this is not like the Eboué case. But everybody keeps saying, oh, this happened to Eboué, that's why man is doing it. I think, you know, one of the things, I know PF is here, we have had these conversations, how culture influences people's perception, and how something like as small as music influences people's perception. When I was very young, Chief Commander Ebisan, they did a song and said, I'm sure some of you know that song. Chief Commander, and he concluded when I said, Ayale Yani, Baale Leni, Ikpo Tawa, Yeni. So Chief Commander Ebisan sang that song and sowed that seed in people's head. The man is a pastor now, he doesn't believe there any longer, but he has not sang the song to remove it from our head. I wish the choirs of our church We start composing songs to start to delete some of those files that are the problems now. Many people can't really come to that point. But you see, if you got married to your wife, she's not, there is no fight between your wife and your mother. You must declare clearly where your allegiance lie. The point in which there is a conflict between two of them, the man is already failing. So it's important for the men to stand up to let everybody know, this is my wife. They call them my better half. Your mom is not your better half. Your mom is not the mother of your children. Your mom is not the person you lie down on the same bed with. The place of your mom is not in doubt. She is your mother. She has her own husband. This is another woman who has a husband. If you ever get to a point where you are trying to determine your allegiance between both of them, you have already failed if you go to that point, right? If I'm a footballer, my allegiance is to FIFA. I can't be using the rules of World Boxing Federation to run my football match because I'm a footballer. If you are married to your wife is P1, it's priority one. So if you have struggles, what I would recommend is that get somebody to counsel you. You can get a coach, you can get a counselor, you can get an advisor to help you go through it. I also agree that sometimes the problem is that the mothers themselves don't know their boundaries. So if you know your mom is very territorial, because some women are territorial, we must admit that, you must start working on it before you get married. You know, start working. So it's not when you marry and now start to deal with that territorialism. You must work on it from before you get married. That's one part of it. So that's the mother. So the guy should deal with the territorial mother. At the same time, so some wives are also very territorial. They want to drag things. Any woman that is here, well, let me tell you, between me and you see that guy, that your husband and the mother, they're a system. It was a perfectly working system. You are the new entrance to that system. If you understand systems management, the new entrance is the one that needs to assimilate into that system.
Yeah.
If you think you can come and do that system will throw you out, right? You know your body, for example, now if somebody decides to put a new organ in your body, you know your whole body will fight that organ and chase away that organ, right? That's where organ transfer fails. So know you are entering into a system. Know that that system has expectations of you. You also have expectation of both. Work with your husband. If your mother-in-law is send the husband to, don't ever get, the last point I want to make is that I told a guy who had, because sometimes we assume is the mother-in-law that is out. Sometimes some men too are horrible men. Mm-hmm. I had to settle a fight between a man and his mother-in-law. I've never seen that before. A man and the mother-in-law fought. So after we finished it, and I called the guy and said, "Oh, bro, can I ask you a question? You're a Christian. Where did you and your mother-in-law meet that you're abusing yourselves? You and your mother-in-law. On top of what?" So we men, at the end of the day, we are like the thermostat of our home. Regulate your home. There's no need to bring this tension in your home because of mommy and dad. If push comes to the cove, honestly, PF, if you ask me a question, choose between wife and mother. Like I said, you should never have to get to the point of choosing. But if you have to choose on any issue, stay with your wife for two reasons. One, she's your wife. She's your wife. So she gets the priority. For the second reason, let me my last. Mama will die before your wife. So if you are siding mama, let me my last. This your wife will stay with you longer than mama. So wisdom shows that. And finally, tell mama whatever he wants let him go and get from our own husband. But it is we men that feel that lead to all of this. It is not always the problem of the woman. If the man maintains the relationship with mother well and also maintain it with his wife, will not have this problem. And please, let me beg you, all the women here, please stop praying that your mother-in-law should die. Please, I'm begging you. Because some people feel the solution is that the mother-in-law should die. Remember, what you sow, you will reap. You don't want a daughter-in-law to also say you too should die. That is not the solution.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, this is a very, you have said a lot of things that we need to unpack, and I'm not going to take you longer than necessary because we've literally had to hijack Cece Lawyer and then Prof. 2-day notice was what was given and to do all of this, and we have close to 200 people on the call. Cece Lawyer, I am going to ask you, there's so much ignorance out there about the position of the law. What do we need to do differently to begin to educate people? especially on people give advice on social media, because a lot of people are going to, people are ailing. Almost all the platforms I belong to, including Intelligent People's Platform, believe that Hakimi's action was an intelligent action, you know. But I mean, apparently it's because they don't even understand some of the basics of, you know, what it takes when it comes to inheritance and things like that. What will be your word to people out there, and how can we deepen maybe awareness or advocacy on things like this, so that people know that what you call smart may actually be you digging your grave and killing yourself at the end of the day? Because, for example, if Hakimi's mom marries another husband, you know, and or goes for a crusade, like my mom has a house, and then the tenants were owing her. One day I said, "Where is this house?" She said, "We are giving it to church," you know. And I started laughing, you know, because the mother can just go and somebody preaches her happy, and then before you know it, she sows the seed of dangerous seed on behalf of her son, and every property is gone, right? What should people begin to do, and what will be your, you know, advice to people, especially who lead people into marriages and opinion leaders?
Well, first of all, I think that we relationship practitioners, we need to be invested in continuing legal education. I find, for instance, I was reading something on Facebook the other day. I think it was by Zuriel Olowe, and she was repeating what apparently had been discussed in a group about 4 years before. And obviously, nobody had come back to it over 4 years, and they were asking the same questions. Now, that's right, because that's why you have a student, for instance. A student will always want to have more knowledge. You have to keep on repeating the same thing to a student before they get whatever it is they're supposed to get right. But I think that we, the professionals, we owe our listening public a lot of knowledge, a lot of continuing knowledge in that space. Now, I would say this easily, that nobody wants to divorce. I'm a divorce coach. Nobody wants to divorce. So you will find, and I find that a lot, that when I'm talking to people or when I'm counseling them, they are asking me the same question over and over and over, as if to say, please give us another answer so that it will sit well with us. So we, the relationship counselors, have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to ensure that our people have continuing legal education, continuing exposure to the truth or what it is exactly they should be knowing about relationships.
Thank you very much.
Especially divorce.
Thank you very much. Prof, I'll come to you. Was that a smart move? That's the general consensus of a lot of men out there. And I saw a meme that went out of a group of men running in the direction of their women, their mothers, to go and quickly buy everything in the name of their mother. And I started laughing. I want you to speak to that even as we round up. If you have any question in the audience, please kindly send it privately to me. I'll read it out to Sissy Lawyer or Prof in case you know, you have issues in your mind that we've not handled. Yeah, Prof.
I mean, it's obvious. There's nothing that shows that that's a smart move. I think Sissy Lawyer will also agree that that is not just that is not a question. It's a very foolish move, because that property is gone forever. So the question we need to ask ourselves: okay, so if you really want to transfer your assets, because you know, there's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. You can creatively manage your assets in such a way that it pays you. So there are solutions. Move your property to a trust. Let the trust manage the property on behalf of your children, for example. Number two, if you think that you don't want to do a trust, move your property to a company. rather than to yourself. So don't buy a house and call it this house is bought by Portfolio. Let this house is bought by Portfolio Limited, so that if you want to transfer it, you just be transferring the shares of the property, for example. I'm giving the example of a trust. I've also said you can also put it in the hands of your children, for example. I mean, if the law of the land were, but moving your property to your mother, it's not a wise thing. Moving your property, and again, it's also important for us to think about intention. I mean, this whole transaction, what it seems to be is that the intention is to deceive. I mean, what many people do not realize is that, I mean, Cecilia, maybe we'll talk more about it. There is what they call the removal of the corporate veil in law. That it's you can hide something, and the law can say, based on law equity, they're going to remove that veil. So you think that, okay, because if you have done something deceitfully, right? So if you have procured something by deceit, or you have deceived your wife, that woman has a basis in maybe law of contract, or in a case of misrepresentation, for example. So it is not a wise thing. Let's if we have problems with our spouses, let's look for solutions and not start to play games and start to go around things. There are people that buy things in the name of their brother, or the name of. At the end of the day, your wife, if anything happens to your wife, has the children to take care of. What is good? You want your children to curse you because you are trying to hide assets from her. So it's just important for us to know, okay, rely on professionals. There are professionals trained that can show you how to go around all of these things. But please don't follow the Hakimi method. It's a software that the people of the world wants to download into men's head. And that software will jam your system, crash your hard drive, crash your memory, crash your asset, crash everything. 10 years from now, you remember that I said that everything has crashed, because when Mama dies, you'll now be saying, how do we get the asset back? Mama has given it to Allah Salatu and game over.
Prof, I'll come back to you. I mean, there are some questions just coming up, and two of them actually. But Sissy Lawyer, someone is asking, I would like to know the process for seeking divorce in a customary marriage. I have been the breadwinner of the home for over 13 years, and I no longer see the need to be married, so I'm constantly overwhelmed. Counseling hasn't helped. Thank you for putting this together. Sissy Lawyer, customary, what's the divorce process?
The default is the same as in the High Court. The High Court is for the statutory marriage. And Prof mentioned about the statutory marriage earlier. It's the same process. It's the only difference now is that you actually take your petition to the customary court.
Okay.
So you go to the customary court, and almost invariably they will divorce you for the flimsiest of reasons. Because in the customary court, you don't have to have, it's enough to just say, I'm tired of him, and they will let him go.
Okay, thank you very much. Prof, someone is asking, on what basis can a spouse claim a share of future earning? When especially she's not going to feature in that future. Someone is asking that question.
So don't forget, the thing is called settlement. I mean, so the whole idea is that the court system wants to ensure that there is enough. I mean, so if the judge, for example, realizes, or the magistrate, or the case you got, the customary court realize that this man has been deceptive, and there's a need to settle the woman and the children, particularly the woman has custody, then the judge can rule and say, you're going to get it from your future earnings, or you find a way around it. So I think the question is that all the court rules and says this is what you have to pay, and you say you don't have the money, and they say, okay, they put a garnish order on you. I mean, the garnish order is part of the proceedings we use in Nigeria, for example, to collect debts. So that's also possible. So it's possible.
I thought you said you're not a lawyer.
Prof is all around that. We know. I mean, sometimes when he speaks on legal matters, you almost think that he's a legal luminary. He speaks on real estate. You think that, I mean, I don't even know where to put him anymore. But Prof, there's another question in there before I go to the lawyer. Can one have more than one customary marriage according to law, especially if one relocates to another place within Nigeria?
No, so but based on customary law, you can do polygamy. Yes, you can. If you're a man.
If you're a woman, what of a woman?
No.
It depends. It depends on the customary you did the first one. You know, there are parts of Nigeria where the custom allows the woman to have more than one husband. There are subcultures that allow for that. So if it allows for it, why not? But please, just related to that, and I'm going to let Cecilia conclude on this. Please note, if your first marriage was a customary marriage, right, and you did the customary marriage, the man now goes to marry somebody inside church or registry. That second married woman, just right, it's not your wife. He just came for industrial attachment. Why? Because she married customary for the first one. No, so let me try and explain. You might customary the first one. If you want to marry the second wife, it has to be a customary marriage. You can't go and do a statutory marriage on top of a customary. At the same way too, you can't do a statutory marriage and then go and do a customary on top of that. I mean, but if it's different women, you can't do that because the law, the expectation of the custom is that you marry under the same custom. So, for example, I marry somebody on the customary law that allows me to have 3 wives, right? I want to marry the second wife. I now go and marry under the statutory law that says you can only be one man, one wife. That marriage is void ab initio because you're already married. You're already one man with a wife. So you can't go to a statutory marriage and go and do a marriage of one man, one wife when you're already with a wife. So the voiding of the second statutory marriage is because the premise of the statutory marriage is one man, one wife, but you're already a man with a wife. So you can't go into it. However, if you are doing a second customary marriage with somebody that is your first wife, because yes, you can go ahead to do that. If you did an Islamic marriage, you can do a second wife under customary marriage, but you can't do a customary marriage and then go and procure another marriage under statutory marriage, because statutory marriage assumes one man, one wife. At the point when you are going into, Cecilia, maybe you help explain that. You know, part of the conditions that makes a marriage under the Marital Act void is misrepresentation. So when you go to the registry, they will ask you questions whether you are married or not. And if you ever told them I'm currently married, of course, they'll most likely tell you that you can't marry, you can't come as a married man to do another marriage. So I leave that to Cecilia to talk more about that.
Okay, Cecilia, I would like you to talk about that, but also there's a question for you. When we have a woman being the breadwinner and most of the assets are acquired by the woman in her name, will the properties also be shared with the man, even though she's the one taking care of the children? That's another question in there for you.
Yeah, that's what I said. The man can ask for settlement of property. Yes.
Even when he has contributed nothing.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, in Nigeria, there isn't any requirement for contribution, to be honest. So, for instance, if in Nigeria he says, I'm earning 500 naira every month, my wife is earning 2 million naira every month, and I cannot survive on 500 naira, the court will grant him something. Now, it is I hear a lot of people saying that it is not Nigerian, it is not manly to do things like that. And maybe it is not, but that is the law.
Wow. Okay. Prof, I think you have mentioned it, but someone is still asking, what is the sure way for a spouse to have access to his or her spouse property? I mean, you want to enlighten us on when you are jointly buying a property, what should be the names on the property? Or, I mean, maybe you want to speak to this question as well, sir.
Well, I mean, I think the starting point is that, okay, at the point when we're buying the property, we should buy it in a joint name. That's the best thing to do. Of course, there are people that have argued, make sure it's full name. So don't just write your me Fawe, write your me Aminu Akonji Fawe. I mean, all those things are funny things. But if it makes you happy, do it. Put all your names there. It doesn't really make a difference since we understand who is there. So the first protection is to ensure that we'll buy it in names of both of us. The second is to ensure that, okay, both of us take actions to show that we own that property. So, this idea of, okay, it's my husband that handles our property. I don't even know where the property is. It's something that we need to think about as a strategy, particularly for women, for example. So if you're doing construction, go to sites too, show up there. Your husband goes to sites, he's taking selfies, he's doing that and mixing cement, telling people, hey, man building house builder, and all of those. You to go there, carry your own shovel and snap, woman building woman house building, woman carrying cement. Demonstrate acts of ownership, the part of the process, right? And then at the end of the day, when the house is completed, there's going to be tenants. Don't let it be one person that is doing the tenancy agreement. Let there be enough burden of evidence to show that this house is jointly owned, and that those looks like it. But again, if the man is also very fraudulent, he goes around, he doesn't want you to know. Once you know that is happening, I suggest that you approach some people that can talk to the man, and then you can start to work on all those things. But don't be docile when it comes to things like that. Now, let me say also this, because it's important to say this, so that we can be clear. Now, you people, many of the people on this call, you live in Lagos, and you know that your Lagos state is a trap. So let me advise you. If in other states of the Federation, if me and my wife buy property, and we want to do the CFO, for example, I only bring my tax in Lagos state, they will collect the tax of the two of you. And if they can't see your tax, they will impose tax on the two of you. So maybe, because, for example, if you want to go and buy land in anywhere after the Ikoyi Lekki side, Lagos State will insist that you should not pay tax of less than 3 million for both of you. So if you want to find a way around it, maybe the two of you should rather than incorporate the company and let the company be the one to buy it. So you use the tax papers of the company to buy it, but the two of you are shareholders of that company and you own it 50-50. That may be a better way for you to manage the assets than have it in people's name.
Someone is also asking you, Prof, what's the difference between statutory marriage and, well, I think you have explained this. Can one get a licensed place of worship in marriage without doing a church wedding?
Yes. A registry is a licensed place.
Can one get a licensed place of worship in marriage without doing a church wedding? Yeah, I think registry is a licensed place of worship. I mean, it's a licensed place of, that can be consummated. Yeah, I think his lawyer already. Someone is asking, how do you write your will as a woman if you and your spouse own joint property? Prof, you're also an expert on will. I think we're going to do another session. And someone is asking, do the properties in the husband's name alone automatically go to the wife upon his demise if there is no will?
Okay, there are two questions. Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, man.
I think there are two questions there. The first one is that, well, I'm sorry, I can't remember the first one. The second one is that, does a woman, okay, I know what to ask. Does a woman inherit her husband's property if there isn't a will? Now, that's not usual. She doesn't just, if there's no will, you have to go through the rules of intestacy. So, for instance, you have to go to the probate registry. You have to prove the will. Yes, you have to prove the will of the husband, and that is how come, and that is when they will determine who owns what. Now, in Lagos State, the rules of administration we are in Lagos State is that when there is no will, the wife actually gets a third of the estate, and then she also gets a third for her lifetime before the children start to inherit at all. Now, let me repeat that. She gets a third of the man's estate. She gets a third for you. She gets a third, absolutely, it's hers. Then she gets a third for use in her lifetime. So it is only 1/3 that the children or whoever share until her death, because that 1/3 is not part of her estate. The other question is, when two siblings buy property, how do you share, or how do you know whose it is when one of them has died? It will depend on it will depend on the kind of the holding. Now, a lot of us do not understand when we are doing these things that our title deed must state in what share we hold it. So, for instance, if I buy a property with my friend and we are joint owners, the day I die, my friend owns it 100%. If we buy properties and we say we are tenants, we are buying it as tenants in common, then we're saying I'm buying it as tenants in common with me holding 50% and he holding 50%. It saves my own share upon my death. Is that clear, or should I say it again?
Yeah, I think that's clear. Okay, so how do you write your will as a woman if you and your spouse own joint? I think you should talk to professionals, right? Because that's not a topic that you can be handling here. Yeah, so does the woman have a automatic access to a property jointly owned? Sissy Lawyer.
Does the woman have access to a property jointly owned? I don't understand.
Yes. If you bought the property jointly, you co-own the property.
All right, so if two friends bought and they bought as tenants in common, that's what you're saying?
Maybe husband and wife. They bought the property together, yeah.
They bought property together. The holding will determine. So, for instance, if the holding says we have bought this thing as joint tenants or jointly, she automatically becomes the owner of that property upon his death. In fact, it is not part of his estate. There's no probate to go to. It is as if to say she bought it alone. But if they buy it as tenants in common, buying as tenants in common, if they do not specify the percentage holding, then the court will assume it to be 50-50.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Lawyer. Before I ask them to take the final words for us all, I'm going to say this clearly for all of you on this call. Now, the rate of family life practitioners in Africa is way too low compared to the problems we're dealing with. And so religious leaders are about to feel in, but lately, so many errors that will put people in crisis are coming out of the pulpit. Someone sent a question to me, that is a woman supposed to, someone said women are not supposed to work. That's not, women were not created to work. That's not correct by any standard in any part of the world. Not every woman is going to be a wife, right? So let's learn to separate these things, but education is key. So if you are here, you want to be a family life practitioner, you want to be trained, you want to learn and be certified to be able to help people. We need more people who know what they're doing on social media, because a lot of people are just doing this to make money. And it's very sad. I hear a lot of things all the time, and I'm like, imagine if we didn't hold this. Imagine what we have unpacked here. Imagine how many people will run with error, and tomorrow they're going to transfer everything to their mother. We're going to run into trouble. So if you would like to be a practitioner, we have the Institute of Family Engineering and Development, and we have the course Family STEM Engineering Certification. They'll put a link there. Please indicate interest and sign up. We have a module that comes, a stream that comes up in June. You can be part of that stream. So please, you can sign up, put your details in there. They will get in touch with you, basically. The other thing is, if you are not interested, there are courses you can take. There is a course called Family Governance that breaks down how to set up your home, please. You can also click on the link is on the chat. Now, Sissy Lawyer, what's your final take before we sign out today?
Well, as you have said, there is a lot in family law or family issues that we are not, we do not keep in our minds, as in we do not allow ourselves to learn. You will find people will argue about, why should I make a will? What my children love themselves. They will not quarrel when I die. I have heard all kinds of things in my life, and I just start to wonder that, do people sincerely want to build their families strongly? Do people want to leave their families and their children in a place where they are well provided for and where their own assets that they have worked for over time will be protected? So we must always learn. that we need to look after ourselves. We need to look after our families, not only when we're alive, but even after we have left.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. We really, really appreciate you. Even though the notice was short, you came in through for us. Please, let's celebrate Cecilia. Prof, what's your final words before we go?
Okay, thanks. Let me also thank Pierre for organizing. Let me also thank Cecilia for her time and for sharing from her depth of knowledge. I think my recommendation is I want to speak more about, I mean, this marriage thing, it looks complicated, but it could be simple. I think what we just need to do is just walk by the first principles of what makes homes to succeed. Don't let's complicate things. Don't let's do things that will make things more difficult. If you have challenges with your spouse, then it's advisable for us to look for counselors to help us or coaches to help us to unpack the issues. But don't let's complicate issues. This Hakimi story is a story of complication. If what he did is true, in years to come, you will hear the other side of the story. You know, I was telling somebody that we grew up in the time when if your daddy buys record, there is side A and there is side B. Remember those big record? Mm-hmm. These are chemists, whatever you heard is side A. There is no side B. And the side B could be horrible at the end of the day. So it's important for us to always learn the right things. Not everything that because people are saying it, particularly people who are either have evil intentions or they are not following the law strictly sensu. So let us just try and keep things simple, follow the rules. If you miss your way, ask for direction, but just keep it simple.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you, Cecilia, for obliging us and for being there for us. I mean, we can't even thank you enough. Thank you so much. And so thank you everyone who also showed up